Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another thing where I talk about things and my thoughts on these things. And I think things are going downhill. I'm rather cynical about things. Things are going poorly. Things today. We need to get the things to be improved. So yes, things aside from things. What's going on today? This is Thanksgiving weekend. Thanksgiving week. It's Thanksgiving weekend as well. But anyway, Thanksgiving week. So I'm a little bit behind just with the vacation and stuff going on. And so I have Alan Hour filmed. We've got the footage for that. But I wanted to do some animation. I kind of wanted to do a kind of a parody on an educational thing about Thanksgiving. And it was rather simple. It actually wasn't going to be a political thing about the Indians and whatever. I looked up some of the origins of Thanksgiving, and like many Western holidays, the origins of that holiday go way back beyond where you think they came from. Stuff like, like Santa maybe originated from Coca-Cola, but St. Nicholas was a concept that originated all the way out. Like, if I like Santa Claus, I heard was an accent problem. He's been just passed around so much that St. Nicholas became Santa Claus. So yes. Anyway, though. So yeah. So stuff is behind, and we'll get this. This will probably be up tomorrow morning. But be that as it may, let's see. Where did we leave off? We left off in Children of the Sandler. We had killed Grover on our way back to the All Thing, and away we still continued. We wanted to go to the All Thing and pilfer whatever was left over there. We also figured that without a command ship, we could probably pick off whatever remained of their stuff. And so we get back to the city, and we find out that it's repopulated. So just as overnight the city depopulated, the city fully evacuated while we were sleeping and we never noticed, that night before while we were sleeping again, the city repopulated. So Iggy burst into town. He's very unhappy about this because he rather liked having the town to himself. He was looking forward to killing all the military and just taking over the All Thing. Like, that was it. That was going to be Iggy City. So Iggy goes, look for find someone in like a less crowded area of town. We've got to question some people. So Sandler goes, okay, you find a family in a car. And we say, Sandler, it is not that time period. Like, it is maybe just post-World War I. Cars are not that widespread of a thing, even if they existed, which they don't. The book, people are still flying around in flying ships made out of wood and stuff. And Sandler goes, oh, well, it's a recent invention, this is a new thing. Everyone's planning on using cars. And never mind the fact that really in the cities, like, rail systems would probably be more prevalent than cars, but whatever. They were driving a car. So Iggy runs up to them and he holds up the dad. There's a dad in the car. It's a dad, a mom, and a little girl. And so he holds up the dad with a gun. And he goes, stop where you are. What are you doing? And he goes, oh, I'm going back home. And he goes, why are you going back home? It's dangerous. Why did you evacuate? And he goes, well, we evacuated because Iggy was attacking the town. And Iggy the pirate is a very dangerous man. But now that Iggy is dead, we're going home. And Iggy was pissed. He goes, Iggy is not dead. He says, I am Iggy, and I am still very much dangerous. And he says, oh, you're not Iggy. Iggy is retarded. Iggy could barely speak. You must be someone else. And so Iggy goes, I am not. Charon, show him. And so Charon just says, okay. And so he yanks the car door off of the passenger side, just tears it off, and then grabs the wife by the arm, yanks her arm off, and then hits her in the face with it. And this of course is fatal, but I follow through with hitting her in the face with her own arm. And so he goes, see, Iggy would do that. And then he shoots the dad in the face, and he goes, there. Now no one will know that Iggy is back. We're safe. I have protected. He says, we'll use the element of surprise. And so we all just kind of exchange glances, and we're like, okay. And so Mindy the elf says, well, great, you've killed the parents, so what do we do with the little girl? And Iggy goes, I don't know, just give her to Charon. Like, let nature take its course. Charon will know what to do. So Mindy says, like, I really kind of object to that. And Charon says, no, it'll be good. Give me a little girl. And so they get the little girl out of the back, and they give to Charon. And then Charon immediately decides that this is his adopted child. As he gets down on his knees, he goes, you Charon Jr., me Charon, I am your new dad. So the little girl is traumatized, but I take her by the hand and we lead her around town. And she refuses to talk to us because I think that Sandler didn't really want to roleplay as a little girl. And I think that he had no idea how to roleplay a little girl who had just had her family brutally murdered in front of her, only to be adopted by the murderers, as though it was like a totally normal and friendly activity that we just carried out. Because like I said, we developed such a hate for Sandler's NPCs that we no longer had any attachment to the humanity whatsoever. It was just one of those things that was like, I am just happy that they're suffering. Like, the more that these NPCs are unhappy, the better we feel. So I adopted this little girl. I was going to teach her the Wolfman ways. I was going to teach her to run around in a loincloth and to kill people senselessly, and then be told she was a good dog. She was a good dog. So from that point on, she was an honorary Luperati. Or she would have been, except Sandler killed her right away, but that was one of those things. As soon as, like, the first night that we went to sleep, as far as I recall, I can't recall how exactly the timeline of this worked, but the first night that she went to sleep, something dragged her off and killed her. It was one of those things, like I said, Sandler just didn't want to roleplay this character, so he was like, and then he blamed us. He goes, you shouldn't have kidnapped the girl. And we're like, her parents were dead. She didn't have anywhere else to go. We did a good deed. So, yes, anyway though, so that was a very short-lived, I don't even remember, nothing came of the girl. She never roleplayed. We couldn't get her to speak. It was rather frustrating, very disappointing. But anyway though, so we kind of stormed around the all thing, but shockingly, Sandler just he just wouldn't play ball with Iggy's Reign of Terror anymore. Iggy went from place to place shooting people, and everyone just ignored him. Like, he would walk into a crowded room, shoot the owner of a bar or something like that, and everyone would just like, oh, go back to their drinks. You'd be like, I'm Iggy, everyone look, I'm Iggy, I'm back in town, you should all run screaming, you evacuated the whole all thing a while ago. And then someone goes, oh, Iggy's dead, and Iggy would shoot the guy who would say that. And then everyone would be like, oh, we never liked him anyway. And Iggy would leave it, he'd firebomb the bar. And so Sandler had figured out that he was still, as the GM, he was still able to suck the fun out of things for us. So he quit having his NPCs react to being murdered or to being killed or even being set on fire. And like I say, the little girl refused to respond. She wouldn't react. We abducted her in this horrible act, and she just refused to talk to us. So this was how Sandler was now turning the tables on us, is if we didn't want to be treated like idiots by his NPCs, then his NPCs were just going to functionally ignore the party. And so then, at this point, we had nothing to do. Because the NPCs, like, we had no mission. Nobody was responding to Iggy's mission. Like, he could kill as many people as he wanted, but no one seemed to acknowledge the danger. It was just boring. It was stupid. There was nothing to do. So, well, Iggy left to go and try and figure out, he tried to go and do some undercover stuff to try and look into the police station and figure out, like, well, why, why did the military leave? Why did they decide I was dead? They didn't find my body. And of course, that proved totally fruitless. He wound up unable to do, they didn't have any answers for him. They're just like, you're dead. Like, we found out you're dead, you're dead now. Like, no one cares about you anymore, you're dead. And then, of course, that was very frustrating to Iggy. Charon, meanwhile, though, was still rather enjoying the killing, because I was just like counting heads. I was like, kill another one! Like, put the head in the bag, yes! And so I didn't even care, like, I was still having a grand time with Charon. Because for Charon, if it wasn't food, like, he could eat the people. If it wasn't food, then it was just the head count. And Charon's head, just the more heads he had, the better he was doing. So, for Charon, he didn't really lose the thrill. And Sandler didn't like this either. He didn't like that Charon was still having fun. So while Iggy was doing his undercover thing, some guys in white suits approached Charon, and they say, excuse me, we heard that you're injuring people. And Charon goes, no, I'm beating them in combat. Like, I'm a good dog. And they say, well, we feel like that's socially unwarranted behavior. And Charon goes, no, it's actually pretty good behavior. I'm pretty good at it. And they said, no, I don't think so. And so they cast a spell. Like that, Charon is removed from the game. No ceremony, nothing. Just approached by men in white suits. Turns out they're wizards. They cast a pacifying spell on Charon, and they just escort him away. And Sandler goes, all right, Greg, roll a new character. So that was a bit shocking. I didn't expect to just have Charon, vanish from the party like that. So I sat down and I made a new character. I was like, well, okay, so now what do I do? Because I made an arcane engineer and I tried to make him intelligent and able to interact with people, and he got treated like a retard. So what do I do from here? So instead I decided to lay out, I looked up the tree people, like the little tree guys, and so what I did was I made a pacifist monk. and I just named him Zhuzhen. And this was after a character from a game that I played called Shadow Hearts, and I really like Zhuzhen. And so he was a wizard, and so he had some spells, some just minor psychological spells. But I made him a pacifist, and so that way I figured, like, I will play a character who is designed to be sort of a hermit, and he's very he's very zen, and so I put a lot of points into discipline and like no points into combat, no points into much of anything else. And so Sandler sees that I made this character, and I'm like, oh yeah, he's a pacifist. And Sandler goes, I don't think that character's going to fit in my game. And I say, I feel like this is probably a character that is going to fit in your game because the other characters don't fit. And he says, all right, fine. He goes, I can't stop you from making that character, but he's just not going to fit in. And I say, okay, whatever, Sandler. I guess I'll just, I'll take that risk. Like, I wouldn't want a character that doesn't fit into your system. So, anyway, so Iggy then, he realizes that, like, there's nothing to do in the all thing. So he goes, okay, Sandler, he goes, I need to get out of here. I just need to get out of here because we need to go somewhere else, somewhere where I can start my terror anew. And so he gets a ticket. He doesn't go back to his old ship because the old ship people are looking for it, and he gets a ticket onto a passenger ship. And for whatever reason, Sandler decides it's like a modern plane. Like this one is actually enclosed, like the ships were supposed to be. And so Iggy goes and he gets on the plane and he pays his tickets and he takes in his weapons. I can't remember how he got them in, but I'm pretty sure he had to roll some kind of like smuggling roll. And so he takes in these gigantic revolvers, these gigantic military issue revolvers, and just like goes and he sits down on the plane with them. And it takes off, and it takes us to he doesn't even know where. I think that Iggy just says like, whatever. What is your cheapest ticket? Like, what can I get for this? And apparently the cheapest ticket got him an overseas trip off towards the Wolflands, which was on the complete other side of the map. I don't know why that took him there. I guess no one liked to go to the Wolflands. Either that, or there were very few international fees to travel to the Wolflands, because that's where all the Wolfmen came from. So it's a shame that Charon was vanished from the game, because that would have been his ancestral homeland. It would have been some good role-playing. But, anyway though, so that's when Zhuzhen, character spawn for Zhuzhen, is it turned out that the plane was decorated with a potted plant, and for whatever reason, it was me. And Sandler informs me that my legs I'm buried waist deep in the potted plant, in the pot, even though I am a speaking, like, feeling creature. Like, I have eyes, I have mouth, I can speak and breathe, I've got arms with fingers, but they basically crucified me so that I can't move, and then they buried me in a pot, and they're calling me a decoration. So I say, okay, Sandler, that's very strange. And he goes, I told you your character wouldn't fit in. Like, your character's just not going to fit in. And I say, okay, Sandler, I gotcha. My character's not fitting in. So I'm sitting there, and it turns out that Iggy's seat is directly next to, he just sits next to me, who is the potted plant. And so he sits down, and I've decided that I'm playing a very serene character. So I'm just like, I'm okay with being a potted plant then, I guess, whatever. Banflits live for thousands of years. It's like, how long are they going to keep me in this plane? So I just say hello, and I strike up a conversation. And then sure enough, this is about when Mindy the elf quit showing up to games. Because as you may be able to sound, things quit being fun for the most part. I mean, like, all the fun that Iggy presented for us was pretty much demolished. So Mindy the elf just quit showing up. And so it was just me and Iggy for most of for a good while. Grover showed up, and so his character was there. But eventually, though, Iggy got bored because Sandler tried to make us roleplay the entire trip on the plane. And of course, it was going to be like however many months of travel because it was like a standard ship, but a plane for some reason. So like a cramped little aircraft that was just going to be traveling for the next several months. And so Sandler made us roleplay this entire thing. And of course, there was a lady with like 14 babies sitting next to Sandler. And then Sandler started making this gremlin show up on the wing of the plane next to like where Iggy could see it. And Iggy tried to ignore it at first, but Sandler would not let him ignore it. He kept having this gremlin pop up and would make faces in the window, and then he started making Iggy make rolls. He's like, make willpower rolls to not be terrified of the imp. And if you guys have seen the Twilight Zone, it was from a Twilight Zone thing. It was like a joke that was so tired. It was tired before we were born. This joke was so old. So So, like, we all knew this one, and so Iggy just, like, he would roll the dice, and then he was, like, forced to freak out. So he roleplayed being freaked out about the imp, and he started telling people about it, and they were like, oh, you're crazy, sir, you're crazy. And then he got mad, and he goes, everyone believe me about this imp, or I'm gonna pop open the hatch to this plane, and I'm gonna kill everyone. Because he's starting to get bored, you know, he starts to get tired of this, of trying to roleplay on Sandler's terms again. And so they say, oh, don't do that. Or I think Sandler warned it, you know, don't do that, because Grover doesn't have his seatbelt on. It was one of those things, like, Grover left to go to work. Again, he introduced himself. He's like, hello, what are we doing? Like, we're in a plane. And Grover goes, oh, okay. So how long are we going to be in the plane? Of course, we role-played for several hours in the plane, and then Grover had to go to work, and that was no fun for Grover. And then we got to the thing where Iggy's like, I'm going to pop open the hatch on the plane. And so Grover crosses his arms, and he says, I will not fasten my seatbelt. If you open up that door, I will just fly out of there and die. And so Iggy goes, Grover, put on your seatbelt. And Grover says no. He goes, Grover, put out your seatbelt. I'm going to open up the hatch, and I'm going to throw this lady's babies out of the door, because that was another thing. She was throwing her children at him. And this was something Sandler thought it was funny, to have this lady with like 14 kids, and she was throwing her children at Sandler, at Iggy. And Iggy goes, if she doesn't value the kids, then I'm not going to respect the lack of life, the lack of value she puts in the kids. And so Grover refuses, and this lady keeps throwing babies at Iggy. And so finally, Iggy just pops open the hatch. He pops open the door, and Grover, of course, is the only one who goes flying out of the hatch. So Iggy has to physically drag himself over to the lady with the children, and then unbuckle her seatbelt, and then kick her out of the frickin' plane. So this is how he saves himself from the babies, but then the gremlin gets into the plane through the open door hatch, and then the gremlin closes it and then sits down next to Iggy and torments him for however long of role-playing. We might have gone for like 1-2 sessions. I don't know how long it was before we finally got off that plane, but I remember it was just me and Iggy for that time. And so eventually Iggy he lost it. He goes up to the front of the plane, he breaks down the cabin door, and he goes, when are we landing? And they're like, oh, in another 4 weeks, sir. And he goes, no, you're landing the plane right now. And he goes, no, we're over the ocean. We're not doing that. And he goes, I don't care. He goes, I will kill everyone. He goes, you land the plane now. And they say, no, sir, we can't do that. So Iggy just shoots the pilots. And the plane goes down. And that's when we wrap up that session. It was the end of, like I say, maybe the second session of being on the plane, being trapped on the plane. Yeah, so if you guys thought that we were bad when we wrecked the all thing, bad as players, just like, God, imagine like 2 sessions of the GM just tormenting us. And like I say, this is when people, like, they left, and they were just like, I'm never coming back, you know? So yeah. The next session, it turns out that Iggy had been contacted in a dream, and Sandler tells me, he goes, your character is dead, and it was just one of those things. I just gave him a look, and I go, really, Sandler, like, you just killed my character, but Iggy's still alive, and he goes, your character doesn't fit, and I just tell him, I say, you know what, my character does fit, and screw you, like, I'm not making a new character, like, this is, I haven't even gotten to do anything with this character. And so Sandler just throws his hands up. He goes, fine, but it's not going to work. And so I say, okay, you know, fine, whatever it is you want to do, Sandler, just whatever. So Iggy is contacted in a dream by the dreamer, who tells him, you know, like, well, things are not really working out as I imagined. I expected you to go and hunt these crystals that I told you to get, these power crystals, these summoning crystals. I wanted you to get all this materia, and then I wanted you to get the key of time. And that was when Iggy pointed out that he didn't write down the key of time on his thing. He goes, I don't even have the key of time. And the dreamer goes, huh, that's going to be a problem, isn't it? You know what? I'm going to take away your 50 gun skill. You just go back to whatever skill you had before. So that's when Iggy, he lost the hat, he lost the gun skill. He lost his reputation. People didn't fear him anymore. He didn't have the guns anymore. He didn't have the hat anymore. He lost everything. And so then the plane goes down. And we wind up, we're in the Wolflands. Somehow we got into the Wolflands. So it's just Iggy and Zhuzhen, the Banflid. Iggy and Zhuzhen, the Banflid. So we look at each other and we say, well, we're both miraculously alive. The plane is wrecked and everyone on it is dead, but we lived because we had the tray tables up and our seat back in a full upright position. And so what do we do now? And so Iggy just looks around and he goes, we start walking. Like, we're going to look for a river and we're going to follow it until we get to civilization. So we do eventually track down a river. We start looking for an inlet and we follow it, and then it becomes a swamp. And we say, well, that's just predictable. That's just great. Like, so what do you want to do? So Iggy says, what do you want to do? You want to kill ourselves? And the Banflet and Zhuzen, you know, like, he's like, well, I'm a tree person. He says, I really don't need food. He goes, as long as I have water and sunlight, I'll be okay. So, I mean, like, I could just wait here. If you want to kill yourself, though, then I suppose that's your prerogative. But honestly, I feel like we could just both become hermits. If you'd like, I can teach you all the meditation techniques I know. And then Iggy goes, okay, fine, let's do that. So Iggy decides that he's about to just become a hermit, and this is like us just letting Sandler know that we are done. Like, we're not going any further. Like, this is it. Sandler can be a good GM. He can create something for us to do, or that's it. So suddenly, a bunch of NPCs walk by. And they're all the biggest, burliest, most heavily armed people and wolfmen and cat people that we've ever seen. Like, whoa, it's just, oh my god, like, they've got magical weapons completely out their butts. And they stumble into us, and they go, who are you? And then Iggy goes, nobody, who are you? Like, we're just a couple of retards lost in the swamp. Who are you guys, and what are you doing in the swamp? And they're like, that's none of your business. And then they keep moving. And so Sandler just like looks at me, and then Iggy just looks at me, and then he looks at Sandler, and he goes, Sandler, what was the point of that? And Sandler goes, you were supposed to roleplay that encounter and inquire with them more about who they were. And we go, they talk down to us like we were idiots. Like, and they're obviously on an important mission. They don't need us. Like, look at us. Like, look at us. We're freaking nobodies. Like, those were the heroes. Those are the heroes of your setting, Sandler. We can tell that they're all higher level characters than we are. Like, we don't belong with them, do we? We belong here in the mud, in the swamp, living on leeches. And so Sandler goes, okay, fine. They are lost, and they come looping back around, and they stumble into you guys again. And they go, you guys again? Like, what are you idiots still doing out here? And so again, Iggy goes, what business is it of yours? Like, what do you care? And they're like, look, you're just some retard. And so Sandler keeps egging him on until finally Iggy gets up and he goes, do you know who I am? He goes, I am Iggy. Like, he goes, I am the destroyer of all things. I am the chosen messiah of the dreamer. Who are you and what is your problem? And so they go, oh, Iggy. Oh, you're that retard that we're supposed to get. We're like actually on a mission and we're supposed to pick you up and get you, like, you've got the key of time or something, don't you? And Iggy goes, no, I lost the key of time, and I don't care. And so they say, oh, we were told you were retarded. We knew that this would happen. It's okay, someone else probably recovered it for you, but whatever, we're still told that we have to get you. So just wait here, we'll call in our airship, our super duper airship. So they call in this super duper airship, it's like some kind of thing. And it turns out that Sandler the Fifth, has actually created an airship while we were in the All Thing. We got separated from him, and at some point during this, I think we wound up in another dimensional shift. And at some point during this dimensional shift, Sandler created an airship and assembled a team of people who would actually do the stuff that we were not willing to do. So we got on board, and they were like, we collected all the materia, and we did this, and we found the key of time. And also, these are our engineers. And he introduced us to all these engineers. And the engineers were every bit as buff and as deadly as these other NPCs that we'd run into. And these were guys Iggy had nicknamed the Pinball Wizards. He'd actually run into these guys before I'd started playing. And so he leans over to me. And he goes, don't talk to the Pinball Wizards. He says, and also they're merchants. He says, don't buy anything from the Pinball Wizards. He says, everything they make is a piece of crap. And it's all a scam. Like, and it wasn't even that Sandler wasn't intentionally scamming us. It was just that he would invent these terrible inventions, and then he would sell them. And in his own mind, they were worth billions of dollars because they were such brilliant inventions. But you would buy them, and then they would always backfire in your face, or they'd always be way more impractical because he would include these mechanics to balance them out that were just so beyond terrible. And so, yes, so he tells me, he goes, don't mess with them. So anyway, though, so they take us back to Crace, the main city. Apparently, Crace is no longer a wasteland. I don't know what was all about, what was up with all of that. And so Iggy gets a hold of the newspaper, and they find out that the goblin that was on that airplane that was tormenting Iggy the whole time, well, that goblin had somehow acquired Iggy's reputation. So now everyone thought that Iggy was a goblin. And no matter what he said, like, he could tell anyone that he was Iggy, he could say that he was the Messiah, no one would believe him, because Iggy was the goblin from the plane. So that was kind of a blow to the morale on Iggy. And so at this point, he's just tired, he's just like, all right, whatever, Sandler, like, just let your NPCs finish the game for us. Like, what do we need to do next? So the NPCs actually, they say, oh, we can't go. And they go, why? Like, why can't we go? Like, what do we need to do now? What kind of stupid hurdle do you have in the way now? And they said, we can't go because of your Banfled friend. So Iggy says, what do you mean? And he goes, well, he just doesn't fit in with this group. And so that's when Sandler explains to me. He says, the way I envisioned this is that it was scientists and warriors to protect the scientists are involved in this expedition, and they just wouldn't hire you. So I say, really? I say, so the reason why my character doesn't fit in with your game is because you've decided that my character just isn't going to fit in with your game. Like, when you were designing this, you figured that my character just wasn't going to work with your design. So he goes, yeah. So Sandler the Fifth approaches you, and he gives you a ticket for a taxi to take you back wherever you came from. And I said, oh, well, Sandler, my character is like 2,000 years old, so he came out from the mountains 2,000 years ago. If you can get him a taxi all the way out there. And so Sandler the Fifth, he just goes, oh, Sandler doesn't have enough money to get you out that far. You're just going to have to leave. So that was it. I had to just throw away that character sheet. And so then began the final battle, and Sandler made me leave the room. And so at this point, it was just Iggy and Sandler. And then I remember that Iggy had to go do something that day. And so they went to the Portal of Time, and that's really all I know, because I had to go in the other room and I had to wait. And so I puttered around and I looked at the books and stuff, and looked at things and looked at Warhammer models, and that's actually part of the reason how I got into Warhammer, because I would hang out in the game store so often, and I was like, these are cool. So yes, but anyway though, and then Iggy had to go, and he kept telling Sandler, he's like, I have to go. And I could hear him arguing about it, because Iggy was like, I have to go. He goes, just let me kill the boss. You gave me this rifle. I could hear you. He goes, Sandler, I have a long-range rifle. Just let me shoot the boss in his stupid head so we can end the battle. And he goes, you don't. He goes, you can't. You have to use the materia to summon your own army so you can battle the army of the final boss, and then you have to battle the final boss one-on-one. And he goes, no, I don't. He goes, you gave me a sniper rifle. I'm going to shoot the boss in the head. This is what a sniper rifle is for. So I could hear that argument. And eventually, finally, because the time ran down and Iggy couldn't stay any longer, Sandler just let Iggy shoot the boss in the head. And that was how the game, the first chapter of Children of the Sandler, resolved. Now, there's a second chapter to Children of the Sandler, and this is where things become a little bit more interesting for me. And I remember a great deal, many more of the details, because whereas Iggy was always in charge of the first chapter and didn't tell us anything, I became in charge of the second chapter. But I'll get into that next time. Some things changed, and the game became a great deal more about our ingenuity to overcome Sandler at this point. It became a different conflict. But anyway, though, I'll address that next time. So I will catch you guys later.